The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight, turning the quiet streets of Millbrook, Oregon into rivers of reflected neon and shadow. Emma Collins stood behind the counter of Eddie's diner, watching the water cascade down the front windows in thick, relentless sheets. The clock above the grill read 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until closing, and she'd be able to lock up, drive home to her small apartment above the hardware store, and collapse into bed. It had been one of those endless shifts, the kind where every muscle ached and every smile felt like it required more energy than she had left to give. Her feet throbbed in her worn sneakers, and there was a coffee stain on her uniform that she'd stopped caring about around hour 6. But Emma had learned long ago that complaining changed nothing. Life was what it was, and you either kept moving or you got left behind. The diner was empty now, just her and the hum of the old refrigerator in the corner. Eddie, the owner, had left hours ago, trusting her with the closing routine. She'd worked here for almost 4 years, ever since she'd moved to Millbrook from Seattle, looking for something quieter, something simpler. She'd found it, mostly. A small town where everyone knew everyone, where life moved at a pace that didn't leave you breathless and anxious, where you could actually hear yourself think. Emma wiped down the counter for the 3rd time, her movements automatic, mechanical. The rain drummed against the roof like 1,000 fingertips, creating a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. She glanced at the clock again. 11:49. She could start the closing checklist early. No one was coming out in this weather. She moved toward the door to flip the open sign to closed when she saw him. At first he was just a shape in the darkness, a figure moving slowly along the sidewalk, hunched against the rain. Emma paused, her hand on the sign. Something about the way he moved set off an instinct she couldn't name. Not quite fear, but something close to it. Caution, maybe. A warning. The figure stumbled, caught himself against a street lamp, then continued forward, toward the diner. Emma's heart rate picked up. She should lock the door. Right now. Flip the sign, turn the lock, pretend she hadn't seen him. It was late. She was alone. And this was exactly the kind of situation her mother had warned her about 1,000 times growing up. But then he stepped into the pool of light cast by the diner's front window, and Emma saw his face. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't contorted with pain. His white shirt was torn and stained with something dark that definitely wasn't rain. Blood. Fresh blood, spreading across his side. Their eyes met through the glass, and Emma felt something shift inside her chest. There was desperation in his gaze. Yes, but also something else. Something that looked almost like apology. He raised one hand, not threatening, just pleading, and mouthed a single word. Please. Every rational part of Emma's brain screamed at her to walk away, to call the police, to do literally anything except what she was about to do. She unlocked the door and opened it. The rain immediately soaked the welcome mat, and the wind carried the scent of wet asphalt and copper into the diner. The man stood there for a moment, swaying slightly as if he couldn't quite believe she'd actually let him in. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough and low. "I just need—" He took a step forward and his leg buckled. Emma caught him without thinking, her arms wrapping around his torso as his weight collapsed against her. He was heavy, solid muscle beneath the wet clothes, and warm despite the cold rain. Too warm. Fever, probably. "Jesus," she muttered, struggling to keep them both upright. Okay, I've got you." She half-dragged, half-guided him to the nearest booth, practically dropping him onto the vinyl seat. He slumped against the back wall, his breathing ragged and shallow. Up close, she could see the extent of the damage. The blood was coming from a wound on his left side just below his ribs. Not a knife wound. She'd seen those before, back in Seattle. This was something else. A bullet graze, maybe, or something worse. "I should call an ambulance," Emma said, already reaching for her phone. His hand shot out, faster than she would have thought possible given his condition, and grabbed her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "No," he said. "No hospitals, no police." Emma looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were dark, almost black in the dim light of the diner, and there was an intensity to them that made her breath catch. This wasn't just some guy who'd gotten mugged. This was something else entirely, something dangerous. "You're hurt," she said, keeping her voice steady. "You need help." "I know." His grip on her wrist loosened, became almost gentle, but not that kind of help. "Please." There it was again. That word. "Please." Such a simple word, but the way he said it, like it cost him something to ask, like he wasn't used to asking for anything from anyone, made Emma's resolve waver. She should still call the police. She should definitely call the police. Instead, she pulled her wrist free and said, "Let me see the wound." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or relief, and he nodded. His hands moved to his shirt, but they were shaking too badly to manage the buttons. Emma swatted them away and did it herself, trying to ignore the intimacy of the gesture, the way his eyes tracked her movements. The shirt came away sticky with blood, revealing a muscled torso marred by old scars and one fresh wound. It was a bullet graze like she'd thought. Deep enough to bleed heavily, but not deep enough to be immediately life-threatening. If it didn't get infected. "You're lucky," Emma said, moving toward the kitchen. "Another inch to the right and you'd be dead." "Story of my life," he muttered, and there was dark humor in his voice that made her glance back at him. She gathered supplies quickly. Clean towels from the back, the first aid kit Eddie kept under the register, a bottle of vodka from the bar. Her hands were steady as she returned to the booth, but her mind was racing. Who was this man? Why was someone shooting at him? And why the hell was she helping him instead of running in the opposite direction? Because he said please? A small voice in her head answered. Because he looked at you like you were the only person in the world who could help him. Because you've always been too soft-hearted for your own good. "This is going to hurt," Emma warned, dousing a towel with vodka. He nodded, his jaw tight. "I can handle it." She pressed the towel to the wound and he hissed through his teeth, his whole body going rigid. But he didn't pull away, didn't cry out. Just breathed through it, his hands gripping the edge of the table hard enough to make his knuckles white. Emma worked quickly, cleaning the wound as best she could, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. She wasn't a nurse, but she'd picked up some basic first aid over the years. Enough to know this needed stitches, but also enough to know she wasn't qualified to give them. "You really should see a doctor," she said quietly. "Can't." His voice was strained but firm. "Won't, you mean?" His eyes met hers, and there was something in them that made her stomach flip. "Can't," he repeated. "Not if I want to stay alive." Emma's hands paused. "Who's after you?" "You don't want to know. I'm currently cleaning your blood off my floor, so I think I have a right to know." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Fair enough." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Let's just say I made some people angry. Powerful people." "What did you do?" "Existed mostly." The smile faded. "And refused to die when they wanted me to." Emma finished bandaging the wound using the entire roll of gauze from the first aid kit. It wasn't perfect, but it would hold for now. She sat back, studying him. He looked exhausted, pain etched into every line of his face, but there was also something else there, a kind of strength or maybe stubbornness that suggested he'd been through worse and survived. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated, and she could see him weighing his options. Finally, he said, "Michael." "Michael what?" "Just Michael, for now." Emma nodded slowly. "I'm Emma." "Emma." He tested the name, and something about the way he said it made her skin prickle. "Thank you, Emma. For not calling the cops, for helping me. Don't thank me yet, you're still bleeding and you look like you're about to pass out." "I've felt worse." "That's not reassuring." Another almost smile. "No, I suppose it's not." The rain continued to hammer against the windows, and Emma became aware of how isolated they were. The diner was at the edge of town, the nearest building a gas station that closed at 10. If someone came looking for Michael, if whoever had shot him tracked him here, there would be no one to help, no one to even hear them scream. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But there was also something else, something she couldn't quite name, a pull, almost magnetic, toward this stranger who'd stumbled into her life. "You can't stay here," Emma said, making a decision she knew she'd probably regret. "But there's a storage room in the back. It's small, but there's a cot Eddie uses sometimes when he works double shifts. You can rest there for the night. In the morning," she trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. "In the morning I'll be gone," Michael said. "You'll never see me again." Something about that prospect felt wrong, but Emma pushed the feeling aside. "Good. That's good." She helped him to his feet, and he leaned on her more than she thought he would. The wound was taking its toll, the adrenaline wearing off. They made their way slowly to the back of the diner, through the kitchen that smelled of grease and coffee, to the small storage room that was barely bigger than a closet. The cot was shoved in the corner, covered with a thin blanket. Emma helped Michael lower himself onto it, and he let out a breath that was half groan, half sigh. "There's a bathroom through that door," Emma said, pointing. Water, at least. And I'll bring you some food before I leave. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. But I'm going to anyway. She left him there and returned to the kitchen, assembling a plate of leftovers. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, comfort food, the kind of thing that might help someone feel human again. She added a bottle of water and some aspirin, then carried it all back to the storage room. Michael was still awake, staring at the ceiling. He turned his head when she entered, and the gratitude in his eyes was almost painful to see. "You're a good person, Emma," he said quietly. "I'm an idiot," she corrected, setting the plate on a nearby shelf. "A good person would have called the police the second they saw blood. Maybe. Or maybe a good person recognizes when someone needs help, even if that someone doesn't deserve it." Emma didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Instead, she moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "Michael? Yeah? If someone comes looking for you, if they threaten me or Eddie or anyone in this town, I will call the police. I will tell them everything." He nodded slowly. "I wouldn't expect anything less." "Good. Then we understand each other." "We do." Emma locked the storage room door from the outside. Not that it would stop him if he really wanted to leave, but it made her feel slightly less insane about this whole situation. She finished the closing routine on autopilot, her mind replaying the last 20 minutes over and over. The blood, the desperation, the way he'd looked at her. The rain had lightened to a drizzle by the time she locked the front door and headed to her car. The streets were empty, slick and dark, and Emma found herself checking the rearview mirror constantly during the short drive home, half expecting to see headlights following her. But there was nothing, just the quiet town, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the dangerous stranger who'd taken shelter within its borders. Emma climbed the stairs to her apartment, her legs heavy with exhaustion. She should sleep. She needed to sleep. But as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, all she could think about was Michael, his dark eyes, his rough voice, the scars on his body that told stories she didn't want to imagine. Who was he? What had he done? And why did part of her hope that come morning he'd still be there? She fell asleep with those questions unanswered, and dreamed of rain and blood, and a man who said please like he'd forgotten how to ask for anything at all. When her alarm went off at 6 a.m., Emma was already awake. She dressed quickly, skipping her usual coffee, and drove to the diner faster than she should have. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and the air smelled fresh and clean after the storm. The diner looked exactly as she'd left it, but Emma's heart was pounding as she unlocked the front door. She walked through the empty space, past the counter and the booths, into the kitchen and toward the storage room. She unlocked the door with shaking hands and pushed it open. Michael was still there, asleep on the cot, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The plate of food was empty, the water bottle drained. In the morning light filtering through the small window near the ceiling, he looked different, less dangerous, more human, almost vulnerable. Emma stood there for a long moment watching him sleep, and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Then his eyes opened, dark and alert, locking onto hers immediately. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning," Emma replied, her mouth suddenly dry. And somewhere in the distance, though neither of them could hear it yet, 5 black Cadillac Escalades were heading toward Millbrook, carrying men with cold eyes and colder intentions, determined to bring their boss home, by force if necessary. Everything was about to change. The silence between them stretched for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only seconds. Michael sat up slowly, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound, and Emma forced herself to breathe normally. In the pale morning light she could see him more clearly than she had the night before, the sharp line of his jaw shadowed with stubble, the exhaustion etched around his eyes, the way he held himself with a kind of controlled tension, like a coiled spring ready to release. "How are you feeling?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. Her voice sounded too loud in the small space. "Like I got shot," Michael replied, but there was a hint of dark humor in his tone. He touched the bandage at his side carefully. "But better than I did last night, thanks to you." Emma shifted her weight, suddenly uncomfortable with the gratitude in his voice. "I brought some clean clothes," she said, gesturing to the bag she'd grabbed from the lost and found box in the front. "They're not much, just things people left behind. A t-shirt, some jeans. They might fit." Michael took the bag, his fingers brushing hers for a moment. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her, and she pulled back quickly. "I'll give you some privacy," she said, moving toward the door. Emma. She turned back. Michael was watching her with an intensity that made her throat tight. Why did you help me? He asked. Really? You didn't know me? You still don't. I could be anyone. I could be dangerous. Emma considered the question, considered lying or deflecting, but something about the way he looked at her demanded honesty. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe because you said please. Maybe because you looked like you were out of options, or maybe, she paused, searching for words. Maybe because I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. Something shifted in Michael's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. You've been there, haven't we all? Emma said lightly. But they both knew it wasn't a casual question. Get changed. I'll make us some coffee. She left him there and walked back to the main diner, her hands trembling slightly as she started the coffee maker. The familiar routine helped calm her nerves. Measuring grounds, filling the reservoir, listening to the machine gurgle to life. Through the front windows, Millbrook was beginning to wake up. Old Mrs. Peterson walked her terrier past the diner. Tom Chen was opening up the hardware store across the street. Normal. Everything was completely normal, except for the fugitive hiding in her storage room. Emma poured 2 cups of coffee, black for both of them. She had a feeling Michael wasn't a cream and sugar type, and was adding some pastries to a plate when she heard his footsteps behind her. She turned and nearly dropped the coffee. The clothes fit him better than she'd expected. The jeans were slightly loose, but the gray t-shirt stretched across his shoulders in a way that highlighted the muscular build she'd only glimpsed the night before. With his face washed and his hair pushed back from his forehead, he looked different. Still dangerous, but in a more refined way, like a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. Better, he asked, and there was something almost shy in the question, as if he was uncertain how he appeared to her. Better, Emma confirmed, handing him a cup. Sit. You should eat something more substantial. Michael settled into a booth near the back, where he'd have a view of both entrances, a detail Emma noticed but didn't comment on. She slid into the seat across from him, cradling her own coffee, and for a moment they just sat there, 2 strangers connected by nothing but a rainy night and an act of mercy. Tell me about Millbrook, Michael said finally. How long have you lived here? Almost 4 years, Emma replied. I moved here from Seattle after I needed a change. Running from something? Aren't we all? She echoed her earlier words, then sighed. An ex-boyfriend. He was bad news. Controlling, manipulative. It took me too long to see it, and when I finally did, I knew I needed to get far away. Michael nodded slowly. That took courage. It took desperation, Emma corrected. Courage is facing the thing you're afraid of. I just ran. Sometimes running is the bravest thing you can do. There was weight in those words, personal experience, and Emma found herself leaning forward. Is that what you're doing? Running? Michael took a long drink of coffee, his eyes distant. I'm trying to. Whether I'll succeed is another question. What did you do, Michael? What's so bad that people are trying to kill you? He was quiet for so long that Emma thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set down his cup and met her gaze directly. I was born into a certain kind of life, he said carefully. A family business, you could call it, not the legal kind. For a long time I did what was expected of me. I was good at it. Too good, maybe. Emma's heart was pounding, but she kept her face neutral. What kind of business? The kind where people get hurt when they don't follow the rules. Where loyalty is everything and betrayal is death. He paused. I started questioning things. Decisions being made. People being sacrificed for profit. I tried to change it from the inside, but there are others who, they don't want change, they want power. And I became a liability. So they tried to kill you. They're still trying. Michael's jaw tightened. There's a faction within the organization, my uncle's people mostly, who think I've gone soft, that I'm weak. They orchestrated what was supposed to look like a hit from a rival family, but I saw it coming. Barely. Emma absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man sitting across from her with the picture he was painting. A mobster. He was a mobster, or something close to it. She should be terrified, should be running for the nearest phone. But all she felt was a strange, complicated sympathy. So what happens now? She asked. Now I figure out who I can trust in my own organization. I contact my people, the ones I know are loyal, and I take back control before my uncle consolidates power completely. He looked at her. But that's not your problem. I'll be gone within the hour. You've already done more than enough. Where will you go? Better you don't know. Emma nodded, understanding, and hating how much that answer stung. They'd shared one night, a few hours of conversation, and already she felt connected to him in a way she couldn't explain. It was irrational, dangerous, stupid, but real. The sound of engines cut through the morning quiet. Michael's head snapped toward the window, his entire body going rigid. Emma turned to look and felt her blood run cold. 5 black Cadillac Escalades were pulling up to the diner, moving in synchronized formation like a military convoy. They parked in a semicircle in front of the building, blocking the street. The engines cut simultaneously, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then the doors opened. Men emerged from each vehicle, 12 of them in total, all dressed in dark suits, all moving with the same controlled, purposeful grace. They weren't rushing, weren't drawing weapons, but there was an unmistakable threat in their presence. This was a show of force. Fuck, Michael breathed. He stood quickly, his hand instinctively going to his side where a weapon should have been but wasn't. Emma, get behind the counter. Lock yourself in the kitchen. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Michael, now. But it was too late. The front door opened, bells chiming cheerfully, and a man walked in. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with silver hair slicked back from a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so cold. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Emma made in 3 months, and he moved with the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no in his entire life. His eyes swept the diner, passed over Emma without interest, and locked onto Michael. "Boss," the man said, and there was relief in his voice. Real, genuine relief. "Thank Christ. We've been looking everywhere for you." Michael didn't relax. If anything, he tensed further. "Vincent, how did you find me?" "Your phone before you ditched it. We tracked the last ping to this area, then spent all night canvassing." Vincent took a step closer, his hands visible and empty. "We need to get you out of here. It's not safe. Nowhere safe right now. Safer than here." Vincent's eyes flicked to Emma, finally acknowledging her presence. "Who's she?" "No one," Michael said quickly. Too quickly. "Just the waitress. Wrong place, wrong time." Emma felt a sting at being dismissed so casually, even though she understood why. Vincent studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, then nodded slowly. "We should go," he said to Michael. "The others are securing the perimeter, but we can't stay long. If Lorenzo's people are tracking you too." "I know." Michael ran a hand through his hair, and Emma could see the conflict playing out across his face. "Give me a minute." Vincent's eyebrows rose. "Boss." "A minute, Vincent. Wait outside." For a moment, Emma thought Vincent would refuse, but then he nodded, shot one more suspicious glance at Emma, and walked out. Through the windows, she could see him conferring with the other men, all of them maintaining a watchful perimeter around the diner. Michael turned to her, and the vulnerability in his expression made her chest ache. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant to bring this to your door. I know. These are my people. Vincent, the others, they're loyal. They won't hurt you. But after I leave, if anyone else comes asking questions, tell them the truth. Tell them I was here. Tell them you helped me. Don't try to protect me." "Michael, please." There was that word again, breaking something inside her. "I need to know you'll be safe." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she could take care of herself, but the words caught in her throat. Because looking at him now, seeing the way he stood there like he was memorizing her face, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't just gratitude she was feeling. This wasn't just sympathy for someone in trouble. This was something else entirely, something that had started the moment he'd stumbled through her door, bleeding and desperate, something that had grown through the night and the morning, through coffee and conversation and shared secrets. "Will I see you again?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Michael's expression softened. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin with unexpected gentleness. "You shouldn't want to. That's not what I asked." He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "You're something else, Emma Collins." "Is that a yes or a no?" "It's a I hope so," he admitted. "Even though I shouldn't. Even though it's the last thing either of us needs." He leaned in, and for a breathless moment Emma thought he might kiss her, but he stopped just short, his forehead resting against hers, his breath warm on her lips. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Then he pulled back, the vulnerable man disappearing and the boss returning. He walked toward the door with the same controlled grace as his men, every inch the leader. But at the threshold, he paused and looked back. Their eyes met, and Emma felt the connection between them pull tight, an invisible thread that distance wouldn't break. Then he was gone. Emma stood frozen as she watched through the window. Michael emerged from the diner and was immediately surrounded by his men. Not threatening, but protective, a human shield. Vincent handed him something. A phone, she thought, and they had a brief, intense conversation. Then Michael looked back at the diner one last time. Even from this distance, even through the glass, Emma felt the weight of that gaze. The men climbed into the escalades with practiced efficiency. Engines roared to life, and then as suddenly as they'd appeared, they were gone, leaving nothing but tire marks on the wet pavement and the lingering smell of expensive cologne. Emma sank into the nearest booth, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. Her hands were shaking, her heart was racing, and she felt oddly empty, like something vital had been taken from her. The bells over the door chimed again, and Emma's head snapped up, hope flaring in her chest. But it wasn't Michael. It was Eddie, the diner's owner, his weathered face creased with concern. "Emma, you okay? I just saw a bunch of SUVs peeling out of here. What the hell happened?" Emma opened her mouth, then closed it. What could she say? How could she possibly explain? "Nothing," she finally managed. "Just some guys looking for directions." Eddie looked skeptical but didn't push. "If you say so. You look like you've seen a ghost, though." "I'm fine, just tired. It was a long shift last night." He nodded slowly. "Why don't you take the morning off? I can handle the breakfast rush." Emma wanted to argue, wanted the distraction of work, but she also knew she was in no state to serve customers. "Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate it." She gathered her things and headed for the door, but paused at the threshold, the same place Michael had paused. She looked back at the diner, at the booth where they'd sat together, at the storage room door still visible from here. 24 hours ago, her life had been simple, predictable, safe. Now everything had changed. Emma drove home on autopilot, her mind replaying every moment of the last 12 hours. Michael's face in the rain, the way he'd said her name, the weight of his hand against her cheek. The promise, or was it a warning, in his final look. She climbed the stairs to her apartment and locked the door behind her, leaning against it and closing her eyes. She should feel relieved that he was gone. Should feel grateful that she'd escaped this situation without getting hurt, but all she felt was loss. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, making her jump. She pulled it out, expecting a text from Eddie or one of her friends. Instead, there was a notification from her bank app. A deposit had been made to her account, $20,000. Emma stared at the screen, her heart pounding. There was no message, no explanation, but she knew. She knew. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. "For your kindness, for your courage, for not asking questions you didn't want the answers to. Stay safe, Emma. M." She read the message 3 times, her eyes burning. Then she noticed something else. A second text, sent immediately after the first. "P.S. I lied. I do hope to see you again. Soon." Emma laughed, the sound somewhere between a sob and genuine joy. She saved the number, even though she knew she shouldn't, and typed back a simple response. "Be careful out there, Michael." The reply came almost instantly. "Always, you too." Emma set the phone down and walked to her window, looking out over Millbrook. The town looked the same as always, quiet, peaceful, ordinary, but she knew better now. She knew that beneath the surface there were currents she'd never imagined. Danger and darkness and complicated men who said please like they meant it. And somewhere out there in those black escalades speeding toward whatever came next was Michael Russo, a man she barely knew, but couldn't stop thinking about. A man who'd looked at her like she mattered. A man who'd just changed everything. Emma pressed her hand against the window, feeling the cool glass under her palm, and made a decision. She didn't know what came next. Didn't know if she'd ever see Michael again, or if that deposit was his way of saying goodbye. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever happened, whatever consequences came from that rainy night and her choice to open the door, she wouldn't regret it. She'd helped someone who needed help. She'd shown compassion when it would have been easier, safer, to look away. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Down on the street, a black sedan that hadn't been there before was now parked across from her building. Emma noticed it but didn't think much of it at first. Millbrook wasn't big enough for much crime. But then the driver's side door opened, and a man in a dark suit stepped out. He looked up at her building, scanning the windows methodically, and Emma's blood ran cold. He wasn't one of Michael's men. She was certain of that. The posture was wrong. the energy different. This was someone else. The man pulled out his phone, made a brief call, then got back in the car. But he didn't leave. He just sat there, watching. Emma stepped back from the window, her heart racing. She grabbed her phone and pulled up Michael's number, her thumb hovering over the call button. But what would she say? That she was paranoid? That she was seeing threats where there might be none? Or that by helping him, by letting him into her life even for a few hours, she'd painted a target on her own back? Emma lowered the phone, took a deep breath, and forced herself to think rationally. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just someone lost making a call, coincidentally parked there. But Michael's words echoed in her mind. Tell them the truth. Tell them I was here. Don't try to protect me. She had a feeling she was going to need to remember that advice very soon. Outside, the black sedan remained, a silent sentinel, and Emma Collins, small-town waitress, runner from bad relationships, helper of dangerous strangers, realized that her life had irrevocably changed. The question was, had she made the biggest mistake of her life or the bravest choice? Only time would tell. 3 days passed. 3 days of Emma going through the motions of her life, serving coffee, taking orders, smiling at regulars, while her mind was somewhere else entirely. The black sedan had disappeared from outside her apartment after that first day, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She found herself checking over her shoulder constantly, scrutinizing every unfamiliar face that walked into the diner, jumping at sudden sounds. Eddie noticed. You've been jumpy as a cat since Monday, he said on Thursday afternoon, refilling the napkin dispensers while Emma wiped down tables. Something going on I should know about? Just tired, Emma lied, the words coming easier now. She'd been telling a lot of lies lately, small ones mostly. I haven't been sleeping well. It wasn't entirely untrue. Her dreams were filled with dark eyes and gunshots, rain and blood, and the feeling of Michael's hand against her cheek. She'd wake up reaching for something that wasn't there, her heart aching in a way that made no sense. She barely knew him. One night, a few hours of conversation, that was all. But it had been enough. Emma had Googled Michael Russo on her phone, late at night when she couldn't sleep. The results were sparse but telling. A few mentions in business journals about legitimate enterprises in Portland and Seattle. Some society page photos from charity events where a dark-haired man in an expensive suit stood at the edge of groups, never quite smiling. Nothing concrete, nothing that screamed organized crime. But the absence of information was information itself. He was careful, protected, a ghost in the digital age. The $20,000 sat in her bank account, untouched. Emma had stared at the number so many times she'd memorized it exactly. $20,000. It was more money than she'd ever had at once. Enough to pay off her car, put a dent in her student loans, maybe even leave Millbrook if she wanted to. But she couldn't bring herself to spend it. It felt like accepting that what had happened was real, that Michael was real, and if she acknowledged that, she'd also have to acknowledge how much she wanted to see him again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It had been doing that more often lately, making her pulse spike with hope each time. But like all the other times this week, it was just a notification. A news alert about a fire at a warehouse in Portland. 3 people dead, suspected gang violence. Emma's stomach turned. Was that Michael's world? Death and violence and warehouses burning in the night? Emma, Eddie's voice cut through her thoughts. You've been wiping that same table for 5 minutes. It's clean enough. She blinked, realizing she'd been standing frozen, cloth in hand, staring at nothing. Sorry. I'll take my break. Outside, the October air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Millbrook looked like a postcard of small-town America. The hardware store with its faded awning, the coffee shop with mismatched furniture visible through the windows, the old theater that only showed movies on weekends. Safe, simple, boring. Everything she'd wanted when she'd fled Seattle. Now it felt like a cage. Emma walked to the small park at the end of Main Street, sat on a bench beneath a maple tree that was losing its leaves in shades of red and gold, and pulled out her phone. Michael's number was still saved. That last text thread still open. Be careful out there, Michael. Always. You too. 3 days of silence since then. 3 days of wondering if he was okay, if he was even alive. 3 days of telling herself she was being ridiculous, that she needed to forget about him and move on. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She could text him. Just something simple. Hope you're okay. Or, thinking about you. Or even just, Hi. But what if he didn't respond? What if the silence was intentional, his way of cutting ties cleanly? Or worse, what if he couldn't respond? Emma was so absorbed in her phone that she didn't hear the footsteps until they were right behind her. Emma Collins? She spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. A man stood there. Not one of Michael's people, but not threatening either. He was maybe 50, with gray hair and a kind face, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that made him look like every other resident of Millbrook. But his eyes were sharp, assessing. "Who's asking?" Emma managed, proud that her voice didn't shake. "My name's Frank Morrison. I'm a private investigator." He held up his hands, showing they were empty. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to ask you a few questions." "About what?" "About Monday night. About the man you helped." Emma's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Ms. Collins, I'm not with the police and I'm not with anyone who wants to hurt you." Frank took a step closer, his expression sincere. "I'm actually trying to help, but I need information." "Help who?" "That's complicated." Frank glanced around the empty park, then sat on the bench beside her, not close enough to be threatening, but near enough to talk quietly. "Michael Russo is in danger. Real danger. And if you know where he is, you might be in danger too." Emma's hands clenched around her phone. "I told you, I don't know. He was here Monday night. He was injured. You gave him shelter." Frank's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not guessing, Miss Collins. I have witnesses who saw the Escalades. I have bank records showing a large deposit into your account the next day. I have security footage from the gas station down the street showing a man matching Russo's description, walking toward your diner at 11:43 p.m. in the rain." Emma felt the walls closing in. "Who hired you?" "Someone who cares about Michael's well-being. Someone who's worried that the current situation is going to end with him dead." Frank leaned forward slightly. "Look, I know you don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. But I need you to understand something. There are two factions fighting for control of the Russo organization right now. Michael's people, who want reform, and his uncle Lorenzo's people, who want things to stay exactly as they've always been. Violent, profitable, and brutal. And which side are you on?" "I'm on the side that pays me," Frank admitted. "But I also have a conscience. Michael Russo, for all his faults, is trying to do something good. He's trying to steer his family's organization away from the worst of their activities. His uncle wants him dead for it." Emma stared at him, trying to read truth from deception. "If Michael wanted me to know where he was, he would have told me." "Would he? Or would he try to protect you by keeping you in the dark?" Frank's eyes were kind. "Ms. Collins, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of bad men. Michael Russo is not one of them. Dangerous, yes. Complicated, absolutely. But not bad. Then why do you need to find him?" "Because Lorenzo's people are getting close. And when they find him, and they will, there's going to be bloodshed. A lot of it." Frank pulled a card from his pocket and held it out. "I'm staying at the Millbrook Inn, room 204. If you hear from him, if he contacts you, please call me. I might be able to help." Emma didn't take the card. "And if I don't?" Frank set it on the bench between them. "Then I hope you're prepared for what comes next." He stood, gave her a long look that might have been pity or warning or both, and walked away. Emma sat frozen, staring at the business card like it might bite her. Frank Morrison, private investigator. A Portland phone number. She should throw it away. Should pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, she took a photo of it with her phone and tucked the card into her pocket. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Frank's words playing on repeat in her mind. When they find him, and they will, there's going to be bloodshed. At 2:17 a.m., her phone buzzed. Emma grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it, her heart pounding. Unknown number. "Emma? It's Vincent, Michael's second, don't hang up." She sat up, suddenly wide awake. "Where is he? Is he okay?" "He's alive. Injured again, but alive." Vincent's voice was tight with stress. "There was an ambush yesterday. Lorenzo's people. We got out, but it was close." "Why are you calling me?" "Because he won't stop asking about you." There was frustration in Vincent's tone, but also something else. Resignation, maybe. "Every few hours? Is Emma safe? Has anyone approached her?" I finally told him I'd call and check. Emma felt something warm bloom in her chest, despite the circumstances. "I'm fine. But Vincent, there's a private investigator asking questions. Frank Morrison. He knows about Monday night." Vincent swore softly. "That's one of Lorenzo's people. He's pretending to be neutral, but he's not. Emma, listen to me carefully. If he approaches you again, tell him nothing. And if anyone else comes asking questions, anyone, you call this number immediately. Understand? Yes, but... Here, there was a rustling sound. Then Michael's voice came on the line. Emma. Just her name. Rough and tired. But it hit her like a physical force. Michael, are you okay? Define okay. He laughed, the sound harsh. I'm alive, that's something. Vincent said you were injured again. Flesh wound. I've had worse. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. I'm sorry. For bringing this into your life. For putting you in danger. You didn't put me anywhere, I made my own choice. Emma gripped the phone tighter. When are you coming back? I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever if Lorenzo has his way. Then come now, tonight. I'll help you. Emma, I mean it. Whatever you need. Somewhere to hide, someone to trust, I'm here. The silence stretched so long that Emma thought the connection had dropped. Then Michael said, very quietly, Why? Because I can't stop thinking about you. The words spilled out before she could stop them. Because 3 days feels like 3 years and I don't even understand why. Because when I close my eyes, I see you standing in the rain and I... She stopped, breathless. Emma. Her name was almost a groan. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what being in my life means. Then tell me. Come here and tell me. Let me decide for myself. Another long pause. Then, give me 2 days. I need to handle some things first, make sure it's safe. But Emma, if I come back, if I let you into this world, there's no going back. You understand that? I understand. Do you? Because people in my life get hurt. They get threatened. They become targets. And his voice cracked slightly. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you because of me. Then make sure nothing does. Emma was surprised by the strength in her own voice. Come back, Michael. Let me help you. You already have. More than you know. She could hear voices in the background, urgent and low. I have to go. Vincent's giving me the look that means we need to move, but Emma, I'm coming back, 2 days. Maybe less if I can manage it. I'll be here. Stay safe, please. You too. The line went dead, and Emma sat in the darkness of her bedroom, her heart racing, her mind spinning. What had she just done? What had she just promised? But beneath the fear and uncertainty was something else, something that felt almost like hope. The next day passed in a blur. Emma worked her shift at the diner, served customers, smiled mechanically, and counted down the hours. Eddie kept shooting her concerned looks, but she ignored them. She was too focused on the future, on what came next. 2 days, Michael had said. Maybe less. She needed to prepare. That evening, Emma drove to the next town over, far enough that no one would recognize her, and bought supplies, a prepaid phone, a first aid kit more comprehensive than the one at the diner, cash, withdrawn in small amounts from different ATMs so it wouldn't raise flags. She was planning, preparing. For what exactly? She wasn't sure, but instinct told her that when Michael came back, things would move fast. Frank Morrison appeared at the diner the next morning, ordering coffee and taking a seat at the counter. Emma served him without comment, her expression neutral. Thought about what I said? He asked quietly when no other customers were nearby. Every word. And you're wasting your time. I don't know where Michael Russo is, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Frank studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're loyal, that's admirable. Also dangerous. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who's been around this life long enough to know how it ends. He stood, dropping a 20 on the counter for a $4 coffee. Be careful, Ms. Collins, the people you're protecting. They might not protect you back. He left, and Emma watched him go, her jaw tight. He was wrong. Michael would protect her. She believed that with a certainty she couldn't explain. The question was, could she protect him? Michael arrived on the second night, just after midnight. Emma was awake, sitting in her apartment's small living room, when she heard the knock. 3 soft taps, then 2 more. A pattern. She opened the door, and there he was. He looked worse than he had the first night. New bruises on his face, a cut above his eyebrow, exhaustion in every line of his body. But his eyes were clear and intense, locked on hers with an expression that made her breath catch. Hi, he said. Hi yourself. Emma stepped back, letting him in, and locked the door behind him. You look terrible. You look beautiful. The words hung in the air between them, honest and raw. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. Flatterer. Realist. Michael moved closer, and suddenly the small apartment felt even smaller. Emma, before anything else, I need to know you understand what you're getting into. If we do this, if we really do this, your life will never be the same. I know. Do you? Because it's not just danger. It's lies and secrets and constantly looking over your shoulder. It's being connected to things you'll hate, to decisions that keep you up at night. Emma cut him off by grabbing his shirt and pulling him down to her. The kiss was fierce and desperate, months of longing compressed into seconds. Michael responded immediately, his hands coming up to frame her face, his body pressing against hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma said, "I understand, and I'm choosing you anyway." Michael rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. "You're going to be the death of me, Emma Collins, or your salvation." She pulled back slightly, meeting his gaze. "Now tell me what's really going on, all of it. No more secrets." So he did. They sat on her worn couch, shoulders touching, and Michael told her everything. About the Russo family organization, built by his grandfather during Prohibition and expanded by his father into legitimate businesses layered over illegal ones. About inheriting control 5 years ago after his father's death, and his efforts to slowly transform the organization into something less violent. About his uncle Lorenzo, his father's younger brother, who saw Michael's reforms as weakness. About the faction of old guard members who agreed. About the ambush that had sent Michael running, and the war that was now brewing for control of the family. "I have loyal people," Michael said, "Vincent and others, but Lorenzo has numbers and experience and no moral qualms about killing anyone who stands in his way. What's your plan?" "Consolidate my support. Force a meeting of the families. There are 5 major organizations in the Pacific Northwest, and they all have a say in who leads the Russos. If I can convince them I'm the legitimate heir, Lorenzo will have to back down or risk a war he can't win. And if you can't convince them?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Then Lorenzo takes over and everyone who supported me disappears, including me." Emma absorbed this. "What do you need from me?" "Nothing." "What do you need?" she repeated firmly. Michael looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable and hopeful flickering across his face. "A safe place. Somewhere Lorenzo's people won't think to look while I coordinate with my allies and—" He hesitated. "Someone who reminds me why I'm fighting, why any of this matters." Emma took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "You can stay here, as long as you need. It's too dangerous. Everywhere is dangerous right now. At least here you won't be alone." Michael pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," Emma agreed, but her arms tightened around him. "But you're stuck with me anyway." They stayed like that for a long time. 2 people from different worlds, holding on to each other in the darkness. Outside, Millbrook slept on, peaceful and unaware, but in Emma's small apartment, everything was changing, and there was no going back. Michael stayed for 3 days. 3 days that felt both like an eternity and no time at all. Emma called in sick to work, something she never did, telling Eddie she had the flu. He sounded skeptical but didn't push, just told her to rest and feel better. She felt guilty lying to him, but what choice did she have? "Sorry, Eddie, I'm harboring a fugitive mob boss in my apartment." Wasn't exactly a viable explanation. During the days, Michael made calls on encrypted phones, speaking in low tones in languages Emma didn't always understand. Italian sometimes, other times just coded phrases in English that meant nothing to her but everything to whoever was on the other end. She learned to read his moods by the set of his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. Some calls went well, others didn't. Vincent came and went, always at odd hours, always checking the street before entering. He brought supplies, burner phones, laptops, files, and manila folders that Michael would study for hours. He was professional with Emma, polite but distant, clearly still uncertain about her role in all this. "She doesn't need to be here for this," Vincent said on the second night when Michael was reviewing what looked like financial records. "She stays," Michael replied without looking up. "This is her home, her choice. It's a liability. It's non-negotiable." Vincent had looked at Emma then, something assessing in his gaze, and finally nodded. After that, he seemed to relax slightly around her, even accepting the coffee she offered him. During the nights when the calls were done and Vincent was gone, Michael and Emma would talk. Really talk. She learned about his childhood, raised in wealth but also in violence, taught from a young age that loyalty was everything and weakness was death. About his mother, who died when he was 12, and how her absence had left a hole in their family that his father had tried to fill with control, and his uncle, with ambition. She would have hated what we became, Michael said one night, lying on Emma's couch with his head in her lap. She was running her fingers through his hair, a gesture that had become natural between them. My mother believed in honor, in helping people. My father, he believed in power. What do you believe in? Emma asked. I don't know anymore. Michael's eyes were distant. I used to think I could change things from the inside, make the organization less violent, more legitimate. But every step forward feels like 2 steps back, and people keep getting hurt. Then why keep trying? Because if I don't, who will? Lorenzo will turn us back into what we were 30 years ago. Brutal, bloody, feared, and the people who depend on us for protection, for work, for stability, they'll suffer most. Emma had learned that the Russo organization wasn't just crime. It was also businesses, restaurants, construction companies, shipping, that employed hundreds of people. Legitimate workers who had no idea their paychecks came from a family with blood on its hands. It's complicated, she said softly. It's a mess, Michael corrected, and I'm asking you to step into it with me. I already have. He sat up then, taking her hands in his. Emma, listen to me. After tomorrow's meeting, things are going to move fast. If it goes well, I'll have the backing I need to challenge Lorenzo directly. But if it doesn't, he took a breath. If it doesn't, I need you to promise me you'll leave. Take the money I gave you and go somewhere far away. Change your name. Start over. I'm not leaving you. You might have to. No. Emma's voice was firm. We're in this together now, Michael. Whatever happens. He looked at her for a long moment, then pulled her close and kissed her with a desperation that made her heart ache. When they broke apart, his voice was rough. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Maybe ever. And I'm terrified I'm going to get you killed. Then don't, Emma said simply. Win tomorrow. Come back to me. The meeting was set for noon at a neutral location, a private room at an upscale restaurant in Portland, 2 hours from Millbrook. Michael left at dawn, dressed in a suit that Vincent had brought, looking every inch the powerful man he was supposed to be. But Emma could see the tension in his shoulders, the concern in his eyes. I'll call you when it's done, he promised, kissing her at the door. Stay inside. Keep your phone close. And Emma, if something goes wrong, if you don't hear from me by 6 p.m., call Vincent. He'll get you out. Nothing's going to go wrong. Promise me. I promise. He left, and Emma watched from her window as he climbed into one of the Escalades. Vincent was driving with 2 other men in the vehicle. Security, protection, a reminder of how dangerous Michael's world really was. The morning crawled by. Emma tried to distract herself with television, with cleaning her already clean apartment, with anything that would keep her mind occupied. But every few minutes, she'd check her phone. No messages, no calls. At 11:30, someone knocked on her door. Emma froze. It was too early for Michael to be back, and Vincent wouldn't knock. He had a key now for emergencies. The knock came again, more insistent. Ms. Collins, Emma, I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Frank Morrison's voice. Emma's heart sank. She moved to the door but didn't open it. What do you want? To warn you. Please, just give me 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Emma unlocked the door but left the chain engaged, peering through the gap. Frank stood there and he looked genuinely worried. Michael Russo is walking into a trap, Frank said without preamble. The meeting he's attending right now. Lorenzo set it up. There are men waiting. Emma's blood turned to ice. You're lying. I wish I was. Lorenzo hired me to track Michael, but I didn't sign up for an execution. Ms. Collins, if you have any way to contact him, you need to do it now. Why should I believe you? Because in about 20 minutes, if this goes according to Lorenzo's plan, Michael Russo is going to be dead. Frank's voice was urgent. And then Lorenzo's people are going to come here to eliminate anyone Michael might have confided in. That includes you. Emma stared at him, trying to read deception in his face. But all she saw was sincerity and fear. What do you want from me? She asked. Call him. Warn him. And then get the hell out of town. Frank glanced over his shoulder nervously. I'm already taking a huge risk coming here. Lorenzo's people are watching me. But I couldn't just let this happen. Emma made a decision. She closed the door, unhooked the chain, and opened it fully. Come in fast. Frank slipped inside and Emma locked the door behind him. She grabbed her phone and dialed Michael's number, her hands shaking. It rang, and rang, and rang. Voicemail. Fuck. Emma tried Vincent's number. Same result. They're not answering. They're probably in the meeting already. The place Lorenzo chose, it's a dead zone for cell signals. Deliberate. Frank ran a hand through his hair. We need to go there. Now. We? I'll drive. You navigate. And maybe, if we're lucky, we get there in time to stop this. Emma didn't hesitate. She grabbed her jacket and her bag, checked that the prepaid phone she'd bought was in her pocket, and followed Frank out the door. They took his car, a nondescript sedan that looked like every other vehicle on the road, and headed for Portland. Frank drove fast but not recklessly, constantly checking his mirrors. Tell me about the setup, Emma said as they merged onto the highway. The restaurant is called Bella Vista, private dining room on the second floor, supposedly neutral territory, but Lorenzo has men positioned throughout the building. Kitchen staff, waiters, even some of the other diners. When Michael makes his case to the other families, Lorenzo's going to call him a traitor and produce evidence of cooperation with federal authorities. Is it true? No. But Lorenzo's good at manufacturing evidence, and in that world, once the accusation is made, guilt is assumed. Frank glanced at her. Michael will try to defend himself. Things will escalate, and Lorenzo will give a signal. His men will open fire. In front of the other families, Lorenzo will make it look like self-defense, like Michael reached for a weapon first. And with his people in position, they'll back up his story. Emma felt sick. How do you know all this? Because I helped plan it, Frank admitted quietly. Before I knew the kind of man Michael Russo really was. Before I understood what was actually happening. I thought I was just doing a job. Now, he shook his head. Now I'm trying to make it right. They drove in tense silence for a while. Emma kept trying Michael's phone, then Vincent's, then back to Michael. No answer from either. Finally, at 12:34 p.m., her phone rang. Vincent. Where is he? Emma demanded without preamble. Is he okay? For now. Vincent's voice was tight. But we've got a problem. The meeting location is compromised. We spotted Lorenzo's men in position, but we're already inside. If we try to leave now, they'll know we're onto them. Frank Morrison is with me. He says it's a trap. Morrison? Vincent swore. That son of a bitch is Lorenzo's. He switched sides. He's trying to help. Emma looked at Frank, who nodded. What do you need? A distraction? Something big enough to give us cover to get out without starting a war. There were voices in the background, urgent and arguing. Michael wants to confront Lorenzo directly, call him out in front of the families. But if he does that, he dies. Emma finished. Don't let him do it, Vincent. Get him out. I'm trying, but... The line crackled. Shit. They're calling us back in. Emma, if you don't hear from us in the next hour, I will. You're going to be fine. Just get Michael out of there. The line went dead. Emma looked at Frank. How far are we from the restaurant? 15 minutes. Make it 10. Frank pressed down on the accelerator. They arrived at Bella Vista at 12:47 p.m. The restaurant was elegant and understated, the kind of place where power players conducted business over expensive wine. Emma scanned the street, noting the vehicles parked nearby, including 3 black SUVs that looked very similar to the ones Michael's people drove. Lorenzo's men, Frank confirmed, following her gaze. At least 6, maybe more inside. What's the plan? You stay here. I go in and try to... No. Emma was already opening her door. We go in together. You're known to them, they might not stop you. And if things go bad, 2 people are better than 1. Emma, if we do this, there's no coming back. You'll be in their world permanently. They'll know your face, know you helped Michael. Lorenzo will come after you. Then he comes after me. Emma met his eyes. I'm not letting Michael die because I was too scared to help. Frank studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but stay close. And if I say run, you run. Understood? Understood. They walked toward the restaurant, trying to look casual despite the tension radiating off both of them. The front door was unmarked except for a small brass plaque. Frank opened it, and they stepped into a world of quiet elegance. White tablecloths, soft lighting, classical music playing just loud enough to create ambiance. A hostess approached, her smile professional. Good afternoon. Do you have a reservation? We're here for the Russo party, Frank said smoothly. Second floor. The hostess's smile faltered slightly. I'm sorry, but that's a private event. I can't. Call upstairs and tell them Frank Morrison and Emma Collins are here. They'll want to see us. The hostess looked uncertain, but picked up a phone and spoke quietly. A moment later, her expression shifted to nervousness. Someone will be down to escort you. Emma's heart was pounding as they waited. She became aware of subtle things. A man at the bar who wasn't drinking, just watching. A waiter who'd passed by their position 3 times without serving anyone. Lorenzo's people in position. The elevator opened, and Vincent stepped out, his face grim. He took in Emma and Frank, his expression darkening. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded quietly. "Saving your boss," Frank replied. "Where is he?" "In the meeting. And if you think you're going up there—" "Vincent." Emma stepped forward. "Is it true? Is it a trap?" Vincent's jaw worked for a moment, then he nodded once. "We figured it out too late. We're trying to extract without causing an incident, but Lorenzo's people have all the exits covered. If Michael tries to leave before the meeting concludes, it'll look like he's running, like he's guilty. Then we need to give him a reason to leave that doesn't look like running," Emma said. "An idea forming. A emergency. Something personal that would excuse him from the meeting." "Like what?" Emma looked at Frank, then back at Vincent. "Like his girlfriend being attacked by Lorenzo's men. Right here, right now." Both men stared at her. "You're insane," Vincent said. "Possibly, but it'll work. If I walk in there, if I make a scene about being followed and threatened, Michael will have to respond. He'll have grounds to end the meeting and leave, and the other families will see it as justified. A man protecting someone he cares about. Lorenzo will know it's a setup. Let him know. What matters is we get Michael out alive." Emma's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "And then we deal with Lorenzo on our terms, not his." Vincent and Frank exchanged glances. "Michael's going to kill us for this," Vincent muttered. "Only if we survive," Frank replied. Then to Emma, "You're sure about this?" Emma thought about Michael, about his smile, his vulnerability, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious, about the life they could have if they survived this, and the regret she'd feel forever if she didn't try. "I'm sure." Vincent pulled out his phone and sent a rapid text. "I'm alerting our people inside. When you make your move, they'll be ready to support extraction. But Emma," he looked at her seriously, "this is going to get violent. Are you prepared for that?" Emma swallowed hard and nodded. "Let's go get him." They moved toward the elevator, three unlikely allies united by a common goal: save Michael Russo, and maybe in the process, save themselves. The doors closed, and Emma took a deep breath. This was it. The moment everything changed forever. The elevator began to rise, carrying her toward danger, toward violence, toward the man who'd changed her life with a single desperate plea in the rain. Emma Collins, small-town waitress, helper of strangers, was about to walk into the lion's den, and she'd never been more terrified or more certain of anything in her life. The elevator doors opened onto a hallway, lined with dark wood paneling. Emma could hear tense voices from behind ornate double doors at the end, low, occasionally rising in argument. Two guards stood watch, hands near concealed weapons. Vincent stepped out first. "We have a situation." One guard straightened. "Sir, the meeting is still in session. Miss Collins was followed here. Lorenzo's men tried to grab her in the parking garage." The lie was delivered with such conviction that Emma almost believed it. The guard's expression shifted to alarm, then nodded, and pushed open the door. Emma followed Vincent inside and froze. 8 men sat around a mahogany table. Michael was at the far end, looking every inch the powerful leader in his dark suit. When he spotted Emma, shock and fear flashed across his face. Across from him sat Lorenzo Russo, older, silver-haired, with the same dark eyes as Michael, but twisted by cruelty and ambition. "What is the meaning of this?" Lorenzo's voice was steel. "Vincent, you know better." "Security breach," Vincent interrupted. "Ms. Collins was attacked in the parking structure. Your men, Lorenzo." The room erupted. Michael was on his feet instantly. "Emma, she's fine," Vincent said quickly. "But an assault occurred during a sanctioned meeting, on neutral ground." "That's a violation of the accord." Frank Morrison stepped forward. "I witnessed it. 3 of your people, Lorenzo. I recognized them, Carlo and Dominic." An older man with steel-gray hair spoke up. "Is this true, Lorenzo? Your men acted against a civilian on neutral ground?" "I know nothing about this," Lorenzo said, but his eyes betrayed him. He looked at Emma with cold calculation. "Who is this woman?" "Someone under my protection," Michael said quietly, moving toward Emma. "She helped me when I was hurt, when I was running." "Ah," Lorenzo smiled coldly. "The famous waitress from Millbrook. How convenient that my nephew found such perfect sanctuary, almost as if it was planned." "It wasn't planned," Emma said, finding her voice despite every eye turning to her. "He came to my diner bleeding. I helped him because it was right. I didn't know who he was. And now?" Lorenzo's smile widened. "Now you know exactly what he is." "How touching." "Lorenzo, Enough. The steel-haired man, Sal Marchetti, cut through the mocking. If your men violated neutral ground, that's serious. We can't conduct business without trust. I gave no such order. Then you've lost control of your people, another family head interjected, which raises questions about your leadership. Michael reached Emma's side, his hand finding hers. We need to leave. Not yet, Lorenzo said, standing slowly. I think we deserve the truth about what secrets you shared with your new friend. I shared nothing that compromises the family, Michael replied steadily. Can you prove that? Lorenzo looked around the table. She could be federal, a plant. Check me, Emma said loudly. Search me for wires, devices, whatever you need. And if we find nothing? Lorenzo pressed. That proves nothing. Then what do you want? Emma demanded, fear converting to anger. What would prove I'm just someone who helped a stranger and fell for him? Silence fell. Sal Marchetti spoke quietly. Perhaps we're approaching this wrong. The question isn't about the girl, it's about leadership, whether Michael Russo has become compromised. My judgment is sound, Michael said firmly. Everything I've done has been for the future of this organization, to make us stronger, more stable, less vulnerable. By going soft, Lorenzo interjected. By refusing legitimate opportunities because they're too violent. By being smart, Michael countered. The old ways are dying. The families that survive will be the ones who adapt, who find legitimate revenue streams. He's right, a heavy-set man said quietly. My nephew got 25 years. Maybe it's time we listen to new ideas. Lorenzo's voice rose. When they see you protecting a civilian, showing vulnerability, what do they see? Strength? Or a target? Michael's hand tightened on Emma's. They see someone who understands that power without humanity is just brutality. Well said, Sal nodded. But Lorenzo has a point. You've brought an outsider into our world. That creates risk. I can manage that risk. Can you? Sal's eyes were sharp. What happens when you have to choose between the organization and the woman you love? Michael pulled out his phone and pressed a button. A voice answered. Special Agent Catherine Ross, FBI Organized Crime Task Force. The room exploded. Men jumped up, hands going to weapons. Vincent and the guards moved to defensive positions. What have you done? Lorenzo's voice was strangled. What I should have done years ago, Michael said calmly, putting the phone on speaker. Agent Ross, I'm Michael Russo. I'm prepared to provide testimony and evidence regarding criminal activities in exchange for immunity and protection. Michael, no. One family head looked panicked. I can and I am. Agent Ross, you'll find documentation being delivered within the hour. But I have conditions. Full immunity for me and my associates. Protection for Emma Collins. And a chance to restructure the Russo organization into legitimate businesses. You're destroying us, Lorenzo hissed. Decades of family legacy. I'm saving us. From ourselves and from you. The violence ends now. Emma watched, stunned as Michael negotiated. Around the table, reactions ranged from shock to fury to relief. This is betrayal, Lorenzo said quietly, death in his voice. No, I'm saving what can be saved. Agent Ross, my uncle has been planning to have me killed. I'd like to add those charges to my testimony. He ended the call. The silence was deafening. Sal Marchetti spoke wearily. Well, that's one way to force change. You're all implicated, another head said, pale. I have no interest in testifying against any of you, Michael interrupted, unless you come after me or mine. But if you're willing to transition your organizations legitimately, I'll help. Or we can kill you now, Lorenzo said flatly. Vincent's gun was out instantly along with others. Within seconds, a dozen weapons were drawn. But Michael remained calm, gently pushing Vincent's gun down. Even if you kill me, it's too late. The evidence is in motion. The FBI has my testimony. Killing me accomplishes nothing. Lorenzo stared at his nephew, realizing he'd lost. You've made yourself an enemy, and I'm offering an alternative. Work with me. Transition with me. Or retire comfortably. Those are the options. Sal holstered his weapon. I'm listening. If there's a way out that doesn't involve prison or a bullet, I want to hear it. One by one, the others lowered their weapons, all except Lorenzo. This isn't over, Lorenzo said, but without conviction. Yes, it is, Uncle. The war ends here. Accept it and live comfortably, or fight it, and end up in prison. Your choice. Lorenzo straightened his jacket, looked at Michael with hatred and respect. You're either the smartest man I've ever known or the stupidest, time will tell. He walked out. The tension dropped immediately. The meeting broke up, family heads filing out. Soon only Michael, Emma, Vincent, and Frank remained. That was either brilliant or insane, Vincent said quietly. Probably both. Michael turned to Emma, exhaustion clear. I'm sorry. You saved us, Emma interrupted. You saved yourself, or painted a bigger target on our backs. Then we deal with it together. 6 months later, Emma stood in her new diner, twice the size of Eddie's old place, with her name on the sign. Business was booming, partly due to legitimate Russo businesses opening nearby. Michael walked in, dressed casually. No more constant security. Just a man having lunch with his girlfriend. How was the city council meeting? Emma asked, pouring his coffee. Good. They approved the community center. Construction starts next month. He took her hand. I was thinking, maybe you should move in with me. Emma's heart skipped. Are you asking me to move in with you? I am. Emma, you saved my life. Not just that night, but every day since. I love you. I want to build this life with you. I love you too. And yes. Michael came around the counter and kissed her. Someone whistled. Someone applauded. You're making a scene. Emma laughed. Let them see that the dangerous mob boss is completely in love with a small-town waitress. Former mob boss. Emma corrected. Former mob boss, he agreed. Future husband, if you'll have me. Emma's eyes widened. Was that? Not officially. Not yet. But someday, when the time is right, I'm going to ask you properly. I just wanted you to know. I want it to be, Emma whispered. They stood holding each other while life went on around them. It had started with a desperate man in the rain and a compassionate woman who chose to help. Now it was becoming something neither had dared dream of, a real life worth living. Want some lunch? Emma asked. I make a mean meatloaf. The same one from that first night? The very same. Then yes, absolutely. Michael smiled. And Emma, thank you for taking a chance on a stranger, for staying when anyone sane would have run. Thank you for saying please, Emma replied, and for being worth the risk. Outside, 5 black Escalades sat parked, no longer symbols of danger, but reminders of how far they'd come. Emma served Michael his lunch, then sat beside him. They made plans for their future, for the life they'd build together. It wasn't perfect. There were still complications, still dangers, but they had each other, and they had hope. That rainy night when she'd opened the door to a bleeding stranger, Emma had changed both their lives forever, and she wouldn't change a single moment of it. The end was really just the beginning, and it was going to be beautiful.